did your introduction already. So let's probably. So anyway, let me officially welcome all of you to the workshop Q with Cursor and MCPs. We'll see how we can leverage code like code development environments like Cursor, Copilot, etc., and the new wave of MCP tools, specifically the Playwright MCP, in our QA workflows. And we'll end up creating some page object models and some end-to-end tests and see how that works in this new kind of a workflow. So our speaker Mehul has already told us a little bit about himself, but Mehul is very modest, and I know that for a fact. So let me tell you a little bit about him. Mehul is the founder of Litmus Check, and he has been building the QA setup for a whole bunch of different companies of all different shapes and sizes. So he understands QA quite well. Right. Mehul has also been the CTO of Finigami previously, where he built enterprise solutions. And Mehul studied computer science at IIT Bombay and has been kind of developing hands-on for quite some time. A little background on Litmus Check so that this doesn't go amiss. Litmus Check is an AI platform that you can write tests in, and it uses AI to do that. And you can also use AI to kind of triage the tests and auto heal and kind of update the tests. And Litmus Check, we also provide services like if you want to migrate your framework from, let's say, in Selenium to Playwright, or if you want to kind of have a managed testing kind of a setup, etc. That is also something that Litmus Check does. And we work with clients in India, Middle East, as well as US, and companies right from startups to enterprises. So with that being said, let's kind of, I want to hear a little bit from folks who have joined the session so that Mehul can fine tune the session a little bit. So I'm just going to start a couple of polls. I'm not sure if I'm able to start multiple polls, but let's do this one quickly. How many years of experience do you have doing QA? And I see 22 people have voted. Okay, let's just wait a couple of more seconds for the rest of the votes to come in. Awesome. So we have a lot of people, or at least 40% of people who fall into this 2 to 5 years of experience range. But we have people who just started, like 25% people have been in this field for less than 2 years. We have 20% people who have been in this field for 5 to 10 years. And we even have 17% people who have been doing this for 10 plus years. Wow, that's a very long time to be in this field. And I'm sure we have more to learn from you folks. But let's see what we are able to kind of help all of you with. Let me publish this result and let's start a new poll. So let's see what automation framework are you currently using. There are a few options here: Playwright, Selenium, Cypress, or WebDriver, Appium, or any other mobile testing framework that you might be using. Or if you're using something else apart from these, feel free to mention this in the Q&A section. Love to understand where people are coming from. Okay, I think a bunch of people have answered. Selenium has the highest. Oh, it's actually tied between Playwright and Selenium. Wow. This is, I think, going to be the most progressive list of attendees, because typically when this question is asked in any sort of an industry event, typically it's Selenium who wins by a wide margin. But we have Selenium actually again tied. So most people use Playwright or Selenium, but we have quite a few people using the other frameworks as well. So just for context, we are going to be basing this workshop on Playwright. That is primarily because of the support that Playwright has, the native MCP support that Playwright has, and the ease of creating tests in Playwright. No hard feelings towards folks who use Selenium, but I think you're in the right place if you want to kind of get a better sense of how Playwright operates and how you can leverage AI to write your Playwright scripts. Okay, last section, I'll just publish these results. Okay, last section or last question in the poll, but how much AI are you already using? I've kept this multiple choice because this is going to be probably open-ended, but are you already using a lot of AI? Are you using AI for some use cases, but not a lot? Are you just experimenting with AI with no kind of real uh, usage in your actual testing journey? Or you tried it but could not find something that is really useful, or have you not tried anything at all? Okay, a lot of people have already voted. Okay, so I think the most common answer is I'm actively experimenting with AI, but equal number of people, almost an equal number of people, also say that they are using AI for some use cases. So that's very good to hear. That's very good that people are actually using AI and trying out AI actively. And hopefully, by the end of this workshop, you would have discovered a couple of more use cases on how you can use AI. And let's see. Let's kind of all let's learn together. So with this, let's actually start. So I'll stop sharing my screen and hand it off to Mehul. Mehul, please take it from here and tell us how we can use AI.
Sure, let's do it. Let me, again, if you can see my screen, please let me know.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Okay. We will focus on the Playwright MCP, and there are some other MCP servers out there as well. But Playwright is, like Sankalp said, what we'll be focusing. A very quick overview on what MCP is. I think most people have used AI, so they would have heard the term Model Context Protocol or MCP. But it essentially changes the way LLM agents like Cursor agent or Claude agent works, right? Earlier, what used to happen was these agents needed to be supplied tools for them to do anything, either with browser, sending emails, etc. And those two tools are being made by agent developers. So the LLM was given an interface. You can call this API using a function call. And then that function call was then translated by the developer into an API call or into a computation, etc. So a lot of stuff needed to be developed by the agent developer. That got simplified with the MCP. Now you can just connect your MCP client to say, okay, if you're using your agent to process or send emails, you set up an MCP server, which basically is the Gmail MCP server, for example. And you don't set it up. Gmail has set up an MCP server called the Gmail MCP server, and you use you either create a MCP client, which is a standard implementation for any MCP server, or you use tools like Cursor to attach MCP servers to them. So now once I attach, then you'll see it in Playwright as well. Once I configure the Playwright MCP server inside Cursor, my Cursor agent now has the ability to use Playwright out of the box. So I don't really need to do anything to have my agent perform a lot of new actions. So that entire development landscape goes to the third party, which is why MCP has become very popular and agents are now becoming more powerful. Few advantages are basically you can develop faster with agents. Agents are now getting everywhere. And so if they're more powerful, they'll help you do more things faster. The maintenance of these tools goes to the source. So if Gmail is publishing an MCP server, Gmail is going to make sure that those tools are functional, they are backward compatible, and all the good things that the SaaS world brought to software. It gives you a good tool abstraction. Your agent now just has some abstract entities to deal with instead of finer implementation details. And you obviously get real-time tool updates because the server is managing the implementation. And it also real-time gives the agent the interface to interact with. That is also not static. A few MCP servers, apart from the Playwright MCP servers, you will get this presentation. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but the intent here is to tell you that the MCP world is very huge. So after this workshop, if you want to try another MCP server, from a setup point of view, it is going to be the same. And then you will be able to do more tasks with that server. So depending on whether you're doing test automation or task automation, you can use some of these crawling MCP servers, you can do database testing, API testing, accessibility testing. Again, beyond the testing and automation space, there are thousands of MCP servers that have come into the market. You can try them with a similar setup in Cursor. Now let's go to the setup. How do you set it up? I'm guessing if all of you are working with AI already, you have heard about Cursor. Some of you might be using it already. So for those who have not yet used any MCP server, I'm going to show you how you can set it up. So basically, I have a project here, Litmus MCP demo. I can add a .cursor folder here, and I can add my MCP JSON. We'll give you this repo after the workshop. We'll send you this GitHub repo, and this will be there. So this is basically what it means to have the MCP server attached. You can do this configuration in other agents also, so Codex, Claude, etc. But this is for Cursor, so you can just copy this in your .cursor file as mcp.json, and you can have multiple MCP servers here. Here I've just used Playwright. This is going to be respected only for this project. If you want to do it as a global thing, you can go to settings here, Cursor settings, and you have tools and MCP. You can install other MCP servers, which then get respected Cursor wide. So any new project that you start, you can also use that. Right. So that's the first part of the setup. We also have some Cursor rules. Again, I'll share them with you. But I have a list of rules that are more specific to testing and using the Playwright MCP. Cursor rules basically are something that the agent will respect every time, or it'll try to. It's basically an additional prompt to the agent. Sometimes the the agent has a mind of its own. So don't rely completely on these rules. If the agent behaves a certain way, you might have to give prompts while actually instructing the agent as well, even though you mentioned it in the rules. But a lot of times it does respect it. So it's good to have those anyway. You will need to install. So if once you have this repo, you will need to do an npm install. It has the Playwright stuff and the browser. You will have the README file, so you can basically go through this. You will need to run npm install and install browsers, especially for people who are from the Selenium background. This is a slightly different way in which Playwright works. You will install the browsers. It works on the Chromium. It only works on the CDP stuff. So the Firefox and Edge are sort of patched. Edge and Safari are patched versions of their browser, and you can use those as well. But essentially, it sort of mimics the Chromium CDP protocol. The last thing you want to do is, I'm not going through this because it's just basic commands. I'm not running them here live. We'll do the test creation, etc. live. I'm just going through the setup and explaining how the setup will be when you sort of pull the repo. Now, I've made a few folders. Let's go to one of the folders and see the setup that I am following.
Can we take a couple of questions? I think some people want to understand whether the setup will be same if you use a different agent. So if you use VS Code with, let's say, a Copilot kind of a setup, will that be the same?
So you can basically, if you go to the Playwright MCP server here, you will get the Microsoft Playwright repo, and you can scroll down to see all the different variations here. So if you're using VS Code, you can basically run this to install the Playwright MCP server. Right. So I wouldn't give you a generic answer, but if you go here, you will either have a button here for each of these variants, or you will have a command line, or you will have an instruction to go into settings. For example, in Codex, you can have the config file and add this, right? So the setup is different, but you can find it here in the Microsoft Playwright MCP repo. The repo is also open source. Make sense?
Yep, makes sense.
Okay. Well, any other questions that we should take right now?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, great. Cool. So once you have set this up, I will show you the project structure I am following. You can follow a slightly different or very different project structure as well. But you need to understand that the MCP does not really directly interface with your project structure. The MCP only gives the browser capability. The project structure and the structuring of your tests is done by the agent. So Codex, VS Code, or Cursor agent are going to do that. The sort of structure I'm following is that I have selectors here in a POM class. I do not have the methods here in the POM class. The structure I'm following is slightly different. And I mean, it's not to do with this workshop, but generally I prefer following fragment structure, which is basically all the methods are in a code sort of test fragments file, because then you can do sort of multi-page actions and make them sort of modular around it. So it's a preference based on what kind of application you are doing. If it's a very dynamic application, the code fragments is slightly easier to work with. If it's largely static with very few dynamic elements, you can have the method in the page class itself. Up to you. I'm not following a BDD framework here, and we'll come to some things around BDD later if we have questions. But this is very simple. We are doing a POM model, and then I have test data in the config file, and I have test plans in a folder. Not really required, but it helps the agent stay a little more grounded. And then some test files. Now, usually you would be working with a setup which you already have. Most of you will have a setup, and then you will try to implement AI on top of it. In some cases, you might want to start from scratch. I would suggest that you do the structure setup first, maybe write the login test, so that you can instruct the agent to follow your structure. Otherwise, the agent is going to create a structure, and then if you create a lot of tests and then look at the structure, it is going to be very difficult to refactor. So create some basic structure. It will take you maybe 30 minutes to an hour to just create it. One simple test so that the agent has some reference. It's always sort of better in terms of aligning with what you want as the output. Okay, perfect. So now let me show you the website. This website, we'll do two websites. One is a very simple website that I'm guessing every tester would have looked at. You do this. These are very static, zero backend stuff. Forget it. And you can add to cart, you can remove it, whatever, right? You can go to cart, checkout. Checkout will give you a form. It will then give you all the sort of details. Let me just right. I'm hoping it will accept this. Let's see if it doesn't. Yeah, it does. So finish, right? Back home. So this is the basic website. Now I already have the login and cart test here. All the pages are there: inventory page, login page, cart page, and the fragments are here. Now let's go to our agent, right? Let's start a new agent. Okay. I will ask it to go to the source demo folder because it's right now in a different folder. The first thing I want to do now is to ask it to create a simple plan. Okay. So I'll say use the Playwright MCP to create a new plan focused on checkout. Let me just say source demo so that it doesn't get. And let's see what it does. Ideally, you would have an agent which does everything as you intend it to be. But most agents don't work like that. This is a very simple website. So I'm hoping that this is going to get it right in the first instance. So now, as you can see, add to cart is anyway done. It's going to the checkout information. It's going to add information, go to checkout, finish, close. Now, it's not going to close the browser unless I tell it to. But it has all the information it needs to create a plan. Right? And I'll show you what it has done. It started with just browser navigate. What Playwright does is it gives the page state back to the agent. So this is basically the accessibility snapshot. And what it has added is some reference IDs for the agent to understand which element it wants to interact with. Now, the next thing the agent wants to do is login, right? So it's going to give the agent some parameters. It's saying that, okay, go to E11, use, it's saying fill form, so it can give the value as well. So it's saying go to E11, which is a text box, and fill the value standard user, go to E13, fill secret sauce. And the Playwright MCP server is going to transmit these instructions to the browser. It's going to return this Playwright code. This data test standard user, etc., etc. Okay. And Similarly, it's going to give click instructions, etc. So at every step, the Playwright MCP server takes the instruction, executes it, and returns the page snapshot for the next action to take place. And at the end, once it has completed all this, it has now said, let me create a test plan. So now you can go to the checkout test plan and have a look at what tests it has created. 001, 002, objective, prerequisite, test steps. Now, if you have a test plan already created, you can also ask it to sort of translate it into that format. Right now, it's taken, I had a test plan created, which had a format. It has taken some pieces of it. It has not. I can now ask it to sort of translate it to that format, but right now I don't care. So I'm not going to ask it here. We'll see that in some other places. Okay. So now it has done this. So I can say, okay, create test for successful checkout. Okay. And let's see what it does. Here I can also sort of undo this. If I don't like this and I want to completely reject this test plan, I can do it. I can also ask it to create tests from the test plan. I'm not doing it right now, and I'll tell you why in a bit. I want to have the operations discrete, because you can also directly ask it to create tests and not ask for a plan. Yeah. So now that you see, okay, let me see where we have. Okay, so it is. If you look at this entire operation that it's doing, it is actually not using the MCP. It is trying to create the test directly. And let's see what. So I'm guessing it is going to add a test. It is not added a test. It is going to create a test as the last step. Okay. It has created all the other things. It has created an element store, which has selectors. It has created the other elements as well. It has added methods inside the POM model, which is the standard, which is the usual way to do it. So it's ignoring my structure, and I can ask it to sort of revert to the element fragment structure, but let's first let it create the test. So now if you see, it is created, it is now starting to create the test, and it's going to navigate to the checkout page using the MCP to then create the test. So it created a lot of elements using that, and then now it created the test, and eventually it is now running. So this is a command to run the playwright test. So it's running the playwright test to see whether it actually succeeds, and it's very likely that it fails. I'll tell you a few reasons why it can fail, but let's see if it is able to do it in one go. Okay, so here is the test that is running now. Yeah, so it didn't do much. Yeah. Okay, I think it is stuck at a timeout. Let me just ask it to stop. Trying to run it again because it thinks that's the next step, but let me cancel it. Okay, no linter errors, checkout flow, run. It failed here.
Mehul, one quick note. Can you turn off your video? I think your screen is lagging a little behind. Okay. So probably stay a little longer.
Do that. Let me try to turn on my video. Okay, got it. I hope it's gonna work.
No,
okay.
It's not.
So now you can see that this test was created. I don't know if it successfully created. It says successfully created, but I have cancelled this. So let me just now, let's run this test ourselves and see what happens. Okay. No, not this. Um, yeah, and we will run it in headed mode so we can actually see the test. Yeah, good. So it fails, right? Now, why does it fail? Because the cursor agent is not really relying on Playwright to then actually create the selectors, right? It is assuming some information about the selectors and trying to create it, which is one of the common frustrations with agents. Agents try to do more than what they're asked to do or what they can do. So it's assuming that there is some structure out there and it's failing. It's actually failing in the navigate to cart step, which somehow is like it's trying to click on the cart. I think, oh no, actually, yeah, I think it's trying to click on the cart icon and it's failing. We can check, but let's not do that. Let's undo what it did. Let's undo all. I will remove all the files that it created for this. And that's why I didn't accept the suggestion it had created, right? So let me undo this as well. Now, let's try a different approach. Okay. Now, what I'll do is I'll ask it to go to source demo in Playwright MCP and perform the checkout flow. Add all the successful script lines returned by the MCP server in a new test file. Okay, so now I'm asking it to do everything in the reverse order. I'm asking it to first go to the page and first go to the website, do the checkout. We're having trouble connecting the model provider. Okay, no problem. We'll try it again. Okay. So it's, yeah, so you can sort of follow the steps here. It's trying to log in and it's, yeah, I mean, there is some issue with the model provider. Again, another frustration with MCP agents is that they are not, let me just check whether my internet is okay. I think it got stuck at this password one. Let me just cancel this. It's already canceled. So let me just do this to try again. Okay, try again. Let's see. Now it has added item to the cart. It has gone to the cart. Okay. So this is pretty quick. It's trying to fill the form and we can sort of follow it. With the MCP server, because MCP server is so deterministic, the agent cannot really bluff a lot. So if it gets stuck, it has to get stuck. And you can see it in the MCP steps as well and the page state as well. So now what it has done is that it has created a checkout flow, which as you can see has come, and I'm hoping it has come from the steps, but that is what we instructed. So every time Playwright returns this kind of a step, it is basically going to try and do that step. So now let us try and run this test. The whole idea behind this workshop is not to just show you that there is an MCP server, but also to give you some tips which can help sort of work with MCP servers in a better way. Yeah, so then as you can see, this one passed, right? So now by flipping the way we actually use the MCP server and test creation from the agent, we have been able to get to a working test, right? So as you can see, this is a working test, but this is a tricky one because this doesn't fit into our structure. It's just putting the script lines here, right? So I'll accept this test. I'll see what other file that has created. Cart fragments, checkout fragments. Okay, this is fine. I can undo these right now. For now, I can undo these. Let me review the next file. Yeah, I can undo all this. And I can, what is this? Checkout.spec. Oh, yeah, I can undo all this as well. So I have this test which is working, right? Now, what I'll do is I'll ask it to model and create fragments. Assume the selectors in this test are the correct ones. Okay. I'm not reviewing the test. Ideally, you would review the test and make sure that these are the selectors you want to use, these are the values you want to use. This is just to give you a sort of a leg ahead in terms of creating your tests by having all the locators that work in that sort of test in front of you. And then you can sort of specifically sort of go and do some interventions that you want to do. So now when I say that, you kind of move the selectors there, it is now going to the login page. I don't know why it's going to login page, but it's creating the same selectors. So that should be okay. It has changed something on the inventory page as well. It has added methods. Again, it's not really following my structure of fragments, which is, again, another frustration that I have with this agent, that if I define a slightly different structure from how things are done, usually I have to then give another instruction to then do that kind of refactoring. But it's okay. I think it's net positive for me. Right. So let's see. So checkout fragments have been created, complete checkout, verify checkout, etc. And it has updated this test to use locators and fragments now. Right. Now let's see what it tries to tell me. It's saying that everything is done. Right. I would then say run the test and see if it still works. Yeah. Very, very tactical issue that it found. It has not imported one of the artifacts of Playwright. Failed again. It realized that the test data is not complete, so it's going to add some test data, and now I think it should succeed. Failed. Okay. Again, it didn't import expect. So there are some things that it's going to fix it by itself. It will give you like a couple of minutes of headache and it's going to fix by itself. Now, this is a test that is essentially a test of a completely new feature, right? So when you try to do this for a new feature and new pages that are added, in the first couple of instances, it's going to give you this kind of an issue where you have to, so now it passed. So now it knows that everything is working. It's going to test it once more. It's basically verbose output test. Okay, great. So now the test is working. And now is the time when you can now review everything, because now it's in your structure according to the agent. It has all the locators, methods in the right files, and now you can review it. Now, when you review this for a new feature, this is like the first one-time activity where the selectors are completely new. When you're creating more tests, you can also sort of ask it to create the test directly, when instead of saying that just use the scripts, I can say that don't create new selectors, use the existing ones, and wherever there are no existing selectors, then you can use the new ones. So then your new test creation for other steps becomes much faster. So I'm going to accept all this. Usually what you would do is, after sort of before committing this, you would want to run that section of the suite again. So I would want to run all these tests again to see that all tests are working, because agents have the flexibility to change other locators as well. And as you can see, login and inventory page are also changed. In some of the names have changed, and sort of in the cursor rules, you can mention that don't change existing ones, use them instead of overwriting them, etc. And it will become easier. But if there are some changes in common segments which have to be done, you should run the entire suite. Because of time constraints, I'm not going to run the entire suite. We will pause a little bit to take some questions before we sort of look at another website.
So, Mehul, there are a few questions people ask. One of them is a little related to the setup, but like not a sector setup, but this choice of tools. Someone asks, is this Harsh Advani who asks, Cursor now shows a computer use button and launches a Chromium window where it already has access to network calls and console.
Correct.
So are we like, is that like something that replaces Playwright, or is that something that you can add in use?
Yeah. So you can write automations using that as well. That uses a slightly different model. Why I'm using Playwright is because Playwright is something that is universally available. So if you tomorrow move from Cursor to another tool because your company wants to move, you will immediately lose access to how Cursor operates with its browser. Also, the Cursor browser right now doesn't support all actions. It is limited to certain actions which are more tuned to automation rather than testing. So you can look at Cursor's documentation of its browser. So you can you can enable it right here, and most people would have seen it. It doesn't. I would say that if you are using the browser of Cursor and you're facing issues, you can ask the agent to then use MCP, turn off the browser and try, and vice versa. So you can work with them in parallel, knowing that tomorrow if you move out of Cursor, your access to this browser is going to go, and there is no information about what the implementation is and what's behind this. So you can actually never use it in another tool, right? So that is why this workshop is also Playwright MCP, because then not everyone has access to Cursor, either because of the organization or because of just don't want to pay like a monthly fee, etc. Whatever be the reason. That's the simple answer. Again, more MCP servers are going to come up. So this kind of which tool to use can sort of be a broader answer if you ask me a month from now. But right now, I would prefer Playwright MCP just because it's accessible everywhere. If I tomorrow move to Cloud Code and stop paying for Cursor, I can still use it.
Okay. Got it. There's another question which I think you're going to cover next, which is Hari Krishnan asks that can we do complex scenarios using this MCP with the help of agent?
It depends on what complex means. The answer is yes and no. The yes answer is that complexity in terms of number of steps is okay. In terms of type of interactions is also okay. It is able to sort of guide, do most of the things that the snapshot allows you to do. However, the MCP does not give you control of defining the locator, and the agent then has to be smart enough to say that, okay, give me the entire source code and then I'll create my own locator, which you can do. You can have a page.evaluate is still available through the MCP. If the one major limitation of Playwright MCP is there is no way to get a partial snapshot. So if the page is extremely dense, then your agent quickly runs out of context, which is what, I mean, I don't know if I'll show this, but if you go to an Airbnb website and try to do it, or say an Amazon website and try to do it, after very simple scenarios, it's just going to crash because of the context. So yeah, I mean, you can use it smartly by saying that, okay, you log in, which is fine. You can even have sort of a stored auth state. You can log in and just directly go to a certain page, build a test from there, and then you can put in all the information before it, right? So if that is an option, so for example, if you want to do tests, if there is a project creation, inside the project creation, there's a lot of configuration to be tested. You do that as a separate test. You have a preloaded configuration, and then your tests on the configured project can directly go to that project and start testing from there, so that a lot of the previous steps don't sort of impact your context a lot. So that is the complexity that is tough to handle if the website is very dense, or if it is a lot of steps, and that's why it breaks context. Cursor will try to summarize the context and try to keep working on it. But very quickly, especially with the Airbnb website, after a few steps, it just sort of freezes. So you'll have to sort of wait for some agents to get smarter I think the Codex agent has the same problem. It runs out of context very quickly. I'm not sure if I've answered the question because I don't know what kind of complexity you're referring to. So I've tried to give sort of an answer which touches a few different bases.
I think that's okay. If Hari, if this does not answer your question, feel free to kind of add more context. We will try to get to that question. There are a few more questions, Mehul, but I think those are more strategic, so maybe we can take them towards the end.
Okay. Anyway, I mean, even after the workshop, you can email us with your questions and we can sort of reply to them async as well. If there is some specific context that you don't want to share with everyone in the group, you can email your questions individually as well. Cool. Okay, so let's just this is sort of a demo website, right? I mean, let's slightly more complex. Let's go to a slightly more complex website, which is the Todoist website. Again, it's not a very complex website because, like I said, I don't want to have my agent frozen here if like a website which is very dense. But it's a real website. It's a real sort of a real website which also allows us to test. It's not blocking us using a bot, etc. Right? And let me now move away from this. Sorry, start a new chat. Go to the Todoist folder.
That's probably another tip that you should close and reopen new chat windows when you're changing contexts, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, any agent tries to smartly save a lot of information to its memory and make sure that all your entire conversation history is honored. That can become an anti-feature if you start using the same chat for every single task. So if I use the same chat for Todoist, which I was using for Sauce demo, there is higher likelihood of ambiguity because I really don't want that context to be available. There's no use for that context for my agent. So just to give everyone, whoever has not used Todoist an idea, it's basically a task management app, which has more features. I mean, you can sort of go add a task, basic task features. There is upcoming, there is an inbox which gives you current tasks. You can sort of mark it as completed. You can add priorities. You can add dates, calendar, etc. Right. So there's a deep task management or sort of personal task tracking app, to-do app. So typically, most people have a to-do app project. This is sort of a professional one, which also they get paid for it. So just doing something good around it. So yeah, we're in the Todoist folder. Now I will show you that there's some setup that's already done. This is basically verify task. This is well set priority. Yes, okay. Let me just remove these tests. Delete them. I might get them later, but it's okay. So right now I only have a basic task creation test, the task creation with description test, right? I don't have any other tests. Let me ask it to create a task with priority 1. So again, I will use the same approach. I'll ask it to first create the test directly with the MCP server to create to go to list and create a new task. Use .auth folder as the data directory to ensure authenticated state. I'll explain what that is. And the prompt that I'm giving is not the right way to give a prompt. You should go step by step. I should have given the auth folder instruction earlier, but I'm hoping the agent is smart enough and we can try some variations here as well. Mark the task as completed. Save all scripts to a new test file. Do not add any additional. If you don't, I've noticed that if you don't give this last line, do not add any additional scripts, it tries to add expect statements out of nowhere, and that fails. That and do not use existing locators and fragments. So I'm going to give it this and then we'll see a version where it's allowed to use that. Well, let me close all this thing. Yeah. Yeah, it is not this one. First demo, let's close this. Todoist is this. Okay. Yeah, so uses the MCP server. It doesn't use the MCP server approach. Absolutely not. Yeah. So okay. So the agent is not smart enough to do this, right? What it basically understood was that the task should be about going to using the MCP server, which is not true. So I'm going to undo this, remove this, right? I'm going to say MCP server to go to todoist.com and use .auth as the authenticated folder to set up auth playwright browser. Okay, so now it's actually going to it's going to the app, and it's directly gone to today. So you see that there is no login that it needed to do. Okay. So as you can see, if I'm using the same context, it already knows what I wanted to do. I have not opened a new chat. I just said, instead of what it did, use the MCP server to go there. And then it already knows that all the other things that it needed to do, which is create a task with priority 1, etc. So this is how you use the same chat context properly. Instead of sort of creating a new context, I went with the same chat. And now it is going to create a file with all the scripts, hopefully. Yeah, so this is it. In Playwright, and I think in Selenium also you can do it, but in Playwright, the way you sort of set up the auth state is by having a JSON file in the .auth folder. So I have a test which basically does the login, and it saves my auth state to not here, sorry, this one, .auth/auth.json, right? And then in my config, I can just say that every test should depend on the setup, and the setup is basically the file that is here. The setup will run before every test in every before any test runs in every worker. So if I have 5 parallel workers, it will run the setup in each of them, store the auth.json file, and my tests will use the auth.json file to set up the authentication state. So not every test will have to log in. In this case, I'm only running one test, so the auth.json is already there. So I don't need to sort of do the login. I also technically don't need to provide my login credentials to any of the tests, except for the setup test, which I can run somewhere else and actually copy the JSON file dynamically if the security of test data is also a concern. And obviously it saves time and all the other good stuff that happens. So this is what I've done. Now this test is created. Again, it is simple locators, and I will just ask it to what do I ask it to do? I need to run this test, of course. So let me just say, yeah, so let's run this one. MCP Todoist. I don't know why it's not. It should, I should have spec.js. That's why it's not auto-completing. Task management.spec.js. So let's run this separately and see whether it's able to do whatever. So when I run it separately as well, because the auth setup is already done, it also sort of starts from my auth folder. So now, as you can see, it did complete my task, but it failed because it tried to go to activity, and then even though I told it not to like add random verification steps, it has already added a verification step, which is heading. So For now, I actually don't need it. This is only a cleanup step, and it's already sort of added a verification that the task has been completed. One task completed. Okay. I mean, that's fine. Link completed dot click. I don't need all of this. Okay. Let me comment this and run this. Yeah. So you will notice that you will have to verify a lot of these things. So now it is passing. It has passed, and you saw that all the actions were done. You can change this expect if you want something else. Here it's actually checking that the task was added and then the task was completed. So it's doing what I wanted to do. I don't need it to check the activity page, which can be a separate test. Okay, so now let's go a little bit rogue. We only have 7 minutes. So let me take questions first, and then we'll go a little rogue with this.
Okay, question. So, Mehul, one question is that right now we are creating tests from scratch, but can you also use the same, or what workflow would you use if you had to update a test?
So yeah, I mean, so that's one more thing that we can do. So for example, there is a button set priority. Suppose I delete it. Oh, sorry, let me just actually delete it. Right. So now my test is broken, which means there is something new that has come in. Earlier, I was clicking priority 1 directly. Now I have to click a button, which is a UI change that has happened. So I'm simulating a UI change in hindsight, right? So what I'll say is run this test again and fix it. Use MCP server. Well, I mean, I'm just giving it so that it remembers that there is an MCP server. But it's essentially going to run this test. It is going to see that it gets stuck when it's there, when it reaches that stage. And so this is one of the use cases where you have to change a test. A test is already created. But so as you can see, it's stuck because priority, it has to click the priority button, but it's directly looking for priority 1 as the sort of issue. And another issue you'll see is that the cursor agent is going to just not be able to process cancel things very quickly. So if I cancel it, it's still going to work. So the test failed. Cursor was trying to process the results, even though the results in the inline reporter is there. So I just cancel it so that it can see. So it can see that this test failed because I'm trying to click on priority 1 and it's not there. So now it is going to run the MCP server, try to do these steps. It is going to identify that there is a priority button that needs to be clicked first. Hopefully, let's see. So there's one use case. The other use case is when you have a test and then you want to expand it. Now, if you are able to sort of do that with, if you're able to do that without breaking the context, you can still do it. What you cannot do with Playwright MCP server is say that, I will run my test and at the end of the test, I will ask the MCP server to add details, right? That doesn't directly work. You have to do some specific engineering to allow for that. And that is sort of, so it basically did this test and it's trying to check what is happening. So it's fine. I don't know. Okay. So it's basically saying that you want to click this, right? So it has added a step in the middle of my test, which it already which it found out using the MCP server. I'm going to cancel this. It still failed because it probably also tried to add some other steps again. Again, I have not asked it to do it, but it's going to try and do it. Fine. So it has fixed my test. Essentially what I wanted it to do. It has probably also fixed the activity verification step, but let's see. Not really. Oh, passed. Okay. Oh, it has fixed this test as well. I can choose to keep it now if I want. I mean, this is basically fixed, hopefully. So yeah, I mean, so you can fix your existing tests which you've created. That is possible if it knows what the test is about. So if you create it with your with the MCP server, you can see that it's going to add comments. With these comments, it can also figure out what it is, what the code is trying to do, and it'll try to fix it, and it should be fine. But if you are adding a section in a long test where the Playwright MCP server breaks, then you have to use some workarounds like going directly to that page and fixing that specific section, and then asking the agent to sort of paste that code in the test that was breaking. Because the context issue is something that there is no sort of easy way to solve it. So yeah, I mean, you can fix tests here. What else can you do in terms of existing tests? You can ask it to create variations of a test. For example, if I want to say that, create 2 tasks instead of 1 and test that part, 2 tasks, save them, complete all of them, both of them. That is something I can do. And there, a lot of times it is not even going to use the MCP server because it knows the interface. It's first going to try and create the test. And then if it fails, then go to the MCP server, check the issue and come back. Again, I don't know if it answers the question completely because there are some instances where you can't actually use the MCP server directly and do it. Primarily context limitations, in some cases because of dynamic issues of dynamic data and dynamic selectors, which Cursor or the MCP agent doesn't directly give you. So if, for example, if you have a project ID and the URL is based on that ID, it is going to just put the ID in the locator and you'll have to then make it dynamic.
Okay. So I think, Mehul, let's stop here. There are a bunch of questions, but
let's do questions.
Out of time. So there are a few questions which are more strategic, like what to use code gen versus MCP or MCP versus these low code, no code solutions like browser stack, test rigor, etc. So maybe let's answer that, like maybe some like strengths and weaknesses of MCPs versus some other approaches that are available.
Yeah, I mean, MCPs are, so between MCPs and your tools that do some no code, low code, and we have one such tool as well. MCP is a fairly new phenomena, and because Playwright is an open source organization which wants to cater to everyone, it's difficult for Playwright to come up with very, very context specific solutions or do those context specific modifications. So Playwright MCPs are largely going to be used with a lot of sort of live testing of things that are happening or not, and some basic use cases and some basic test writing. For more complex test cases, you can use some code gen if your test architecture is completely solid and you're just creating variations with the same locator segments, very few locators getting added. There, code gen works decently well because it already has all the material that it needs. And there is some sort of supervision that you can overlay. But if for a more complex setup and if you want to make sure that that approach addresses all your needs, then these low code, no code solutions are good. Now within that also there are a few different types. There are solutions which use AI only, which sort of prioritize passing the test case over sort of having false positives. So there might be some false positives in tools like Momentic, etc. because they use a lot of AI and they override your code with AI just to see whether the assertion is working. Then there are tools like tools that use Recorder. Now Recorder-based tools then have a little bit of a slight problem in the sense that not all interactions are then recorded like hover, etc. So you have to have some tools which do that better. Playwright also has its own recorder which can't do hover and some of these other interactions. The other issue is the type of locators that they generate. They can't generate complex locators. Some of them do generate relative locators, but then you also have other types of locators. For example, if I wanted to say, okay, complete the third task in this list, it might take the locator by name, but the name of the third task can change. I just want the third task to be ticked. So that locator is going to look very different, which is basically the nth 2 in the list as opposed to get by text. So these kind of nuances only you know. So there tools which allow you to sort of embed some sort of custom scripts, generate some custom script for you and embed sort of low code with code gen and give you the power of both of these two. Those are the kind of tools which kind of work the best.
Okay. So actually this is like kind of this kind of ties in with what I actually wanted to ask, which is, and this is a question for the audience rather than a question from the audience, is what do you want to see next, right? Mehul talked a little bit about like different types of low code, no code tools and how they compare with an approach like MCPs plus code gen, right? So there's a question that I want to ask, like, what is it that people want to see next in one of our upcoming workshops? And I think this is also someone asked this. So I think Sanjay Negi asked that will we have a Selenium MCP server webinar in future? So that you can see that is also um,
we will have a, I mean, you should obviously try it. The setup is there. We will take a poll on what is sort of more interesting to people, and we will do that in that order. I mean, we can do Selenium MCP as well, but let's see how much interest there is. And if there is more or less interest, we'll figure out. There are a few other things, like few other things like Playwright has launched its own agents, and some more interesting things that are coming up. So there are a few options that we can do. We'll see which one. So I'm not saying a yes or no. It will just depend on. It's going to be a democratic decision.
So we have. I just opened a poll for which.
You can answer the poll. I'll look at the last two questions and answer those as well. So complex like data set in an Excel. Playwright does support data-driven testing. You can sort of load your CSV into a JSON and supply it to your test. It basically uses the node architecture of defining variables in your test, and then those variables get replaced one by one with the objects in that data array. So your CSV gets converted to a data array, each row being one object, key value pair, and then your test gets defined in a value. So your code agent can actually transform your test. You can say that, okay, convert these 5 things to variables with these keys. It will convert that, and then you can write a small sort of CSV to JSON sort of converter that also the code gen agent can do. And that's all you need. So you can, but I mean, it's not a Playwright MCP thing. It's basically a core Playwright thing and a code Node.js or a Python thing. Autogen is a different thing. Autogen is basically an agent creation. So if you want to create an agent which does different things, you can do that. So basically, if you want to create another cursor agent, that is what you can use Autogen for. It obviously you will create simpler agents. You can put other tasks. So you can create agents in multiple different ways. Autogen gives you a UI enabled feature to create a simple agent. Sort of similar to N8N, but I wouldn't say exactly the same. So you just do it very different from what Cursor plus Playwright MCP is. It is an agent that is predefined. You don't control it. It gets better every time. It is not exactly what you need, but it is very powerful. So it's like a SaaS thing, and Autogen is you creating your own architecture. That's the difference. Yeah, so there's a poll.
Okay, so poll, I think people want to definitely see a deeper session onto using Copilot Cursor for QA, and Playwright agents is like the second most popular thing. Actually, like they're tied. So these two things, and I think a close second is the overview demo of like different tools that you probably like give a very good summary, but we can probably do a bigger session on this. Yeah. So I'm just going to now close. I know people might have more questions, but we're also kind of out of time and want to respect everyone's nighttime, right, and bedtime. So I'm just going to close this. So I'll
take away a few details before we close this. I think you have some information that where people can reach out to us.
Yeah. So I'm just going to share our contact details, Mehul and mine, LinkedIn, and our email also. So we'd like to hear from you what you thought of the workshop. Is it too technical or is it not too technical enough? What other topics would you like to see, etc. Do reach out to us, do talk to us. We would really appreciate it. This is the first time that we're doing this, and any feedback will be very helpful. And any motivation, encouragement will obviously mean a lot to us at this stage, right? Because we don't do this often, right? We generally are like you, we're writing tests most of the time but this is the first time that we thought we'd share our learnings with others. And any thing that you share with us will kind of help us get better at this. I would suggest you reach out to us using our LinkedIn IDs or email, write to us. That way we know that you have an active interest in kind of attending the future workshops, so we can kind of let you know when we have these. I will try to send the workshop material, for example, the recording, the repo, and maybe the slides, so that you can try things out yourself. But please do not share this publicly. You feel free to share this material with your team, but please do not share this publicly. If you email me, I can send you a badge of participation, just so that you can show off a little bit on LinkedIn. And lastly, just a small plug, but if you do want to see a demo of our no-code tool, then please reach out to us. We're happy to do a demo, and we're also happy to kind of generally talk to you and help you understand how you can be using AI to solve some of the QA specific problems that you might be facing, your issues. And lastly, just please, if you like the workshop or if you had any takeaways, please just post a little bit of a message on LinkedIn and tag us there. It helps us get some more visibility, and with more people interested, we can get better resources and help do better topics in future. Right. So that's all. Really appreciate the time all of you spent with us, and I think most of the people kind of stayed for the entire workshop, which is great, which is more than what we expected, really, considering that it is way past 9. But thanks a lot, people. Thanks a lot, Mehul, for showing us what you do and how people can use Playwright, MCP, and no-code solutions. And with that, I think we'll come to close.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And see you soon.